How did your stepsister cope when you became the center of attention? Storytime. My parents forced me to lose weight for my stepsister's wedding, but they couldn't handle what happened next. Growing up, I was always the biggest kid in the room. While my classmates were still figuring out what made them unique, my size had already set me apart. As I got older, the weight I carried became even more noticeable. By high school, I was undeniably overweight, and my body was a constant reminder of how different I was from everyone else. College wasn't much different. While my peers were finding themselves, dating, and exploring new experiences, I felt like I was stuck, trapped in the same identity I'd carried my whole life. Being overweight wasn't just about my body. It defined how people treated me. It made me an easy target for mockery, ridicule, and nasty comments from those who didn't care to look beyond appearances. I was bullied more times than I can count. Classmates would laugh at me, whisper cruel jokes, and use me as the punchline for their amusement. They excluded me from games, parties, and social events, making it clear that I wasn't welcome. It felt like I was constantly on the outside looking in, watching everyone else live their lives while I remained invisible, except when they wanted someone to mock. The years of bullying shaped how I saw myself and the world around me. I felt so out of place that I turned to books for escape. Literature became my refuge, the one place where I wasn't judged or laughed at. But even that gave me yet another unwanted label, the nerd. And like everything else about me, I was ridiculed for it. My younger stepsister, Bonnie, however, was the complete opposite. Just a year younger than me, she had something I never, effortless charisma. She was charming, social, instantly likable, and beautiful. Bonnie thrived in social situations where I struggled to fit in. She could walk into a room and become the center of attention immediately, drawing people to her as if they were planets orbiting the sun. Despite our differences, I loved my stepsister deeply. I took my role as her older stepbrother seriously, always wanting to protect her. When she started college, I was excited, proud, even to be her big stepbrother. But as she settled into her new world, I noticed something changing. Bonnie began to realize how differently we were treated. While she was admired and adored, I was ignored or mocked. And instead of standing by my side, she started pulling away from me. At first, she avoided me in public. Then she started actively ignoring me. That hurt. But I told myself she was just trying to fit in. But then she took it further. Bonnie didn't just distance herself. She became part of the crowd that humiliated me. She laughed along with her new friends when they made jokes at my expense. She would look the other way when they singled me out, pretending she didn't notice. She became one of them. At school, lunch was the worst. Bonnie and her friends would taunt me in front of everyone, sometimes even trying to trip me as I walked by with my tray, just trying to get a laugh. I wasn't just losing my stepsister to new people, I was losing her to the same cruelty I'd endured for years. It felt like I had to be on guard all the time, not just for my classmates, but for my own stepsister. At home, things weren't any better. Whenever Bonnie invited her friends over, they would gang up on me. They'd barge into my room without knocking, laughing and mocking my body like it was some kind of joke. They'd throw around insults like geek and fatty, as if my existence was purely for their entertainment. It wasn't just humiliating, it made me feel small, alone, and completely out of place in my own home. I tried to explain my feelings to my parents, hoping they would see how painful it was to deal with Bonnie's behavior. But every time I spoke up, they brushed off my concerns. They would just laugh and excuse her actions, saying, "That's just how step-siblings bond," or "Bonnie's just teasing you, don't take it so seriously." They even suggested that I should loosen up and stop being so sensitive. They never understood how much it hurt to be constantly ridiculed by my own stepsister, or how isolated I felt knowing that even my parents wouldn't acknowledge it. Instead of supporting me, they told me that I was older and should be more patient and resilient, as if I was supposed to just accept the cruelty. The only time I ever felt acknowledged by my own parents was when it came to my grades. School had always been my safe space, and academics came easily to me. I got used to achieving high grades, and in a way, it became the one area where I felt superior to others. For my parents, it was the one thing about me they were proud of. They loved bragging about my academic success, using it as proof that they were great parents. But Bonnie hated the comparisons. She wasn't particularly academic, nor did she want to be. But every time our parents praised my achievements, it was a reminder that she wasn't living up to their expectations. I could tell that she was frustrated and resentful, and that's probably why she started sabotaging me. She found a way to get back at me by destroying my hard work. Late at night, she would sneak into my room and steal my homework, often right before a major assignment was due. I'd wake up the next morning, panic settling in, tearing through my books and papers, frantically searching for my missing work. And there she'd be, standing in the doorway, smirking, enjoying every second of my anxiety. To her, it was a small victory, a way to remind me that I wasn't invincible. She knew how much my grades meant to me, how much of my self-worth was tied to them, and she loved shaking that foundation. Years later, she drunkenly admitted what she had done. Time has softened our relationship, but we were never able to rebuild that step-sibling bond. We've both grown up, and the childish hostility has faded, but that deep closeness has, well, we never found it again. After graduating, I moved away, started a new life in a new city, and rarely saw my family. As the years passed, our communication became limited. Occasional texts or calls, but nothing beyond that. So when I planned a summer visit home last year, I was actually excited. It had been so long since we were all together, and I was looking forward to reconnecting as a family. But things didn't go as planned. At first, the family lunch seemed normal. Laughter, conversation, and my parents acting thrilled to see me. But underneath it all, something felt off, and soon enough, I would find out exactly why. At first, our family lunch felt warm and nostalgic, as if no time had passed. But that changed when Bonnie suddenly announced her engagement. None of us had seen it coming, and at first we thought she was joking. However, the way she confidently displayed a stunning engagement ring made it clear she was serious. I genuinely genuinely felt happy for her. She had found someone else who she loved and who loved her back. But almost as soon as the congratulations settled, Bonnie turned to me with a smirk and casually asked about my life. I started sharing updates about my career, my experiences, and how fulfilling things had been for me. But before I could finish, she cut me off with a smirk. "I just have to ask," she said, amusement in her voice. "Why are you still fat?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, dragging up old insecurities I thought I had moved long ago. The room fell into an awkward silence, and I could feel every eye on me, waiting to see how I would react. I forced an awkward laugh and shrugged, trying to brush it off. But before I could even recover, my parents jumped in, and instead of defending me, they chimed in with their own criticisms, laminating about how I was still overweight and unmarried. They openly worried that I might never have children. Their words stung deeper than I expected. My achievements, my independence, and the life I had built for myself, all of it seemed irrelevant in their eyes. They only cared about my weight and the fact that I hadn't started a family like Bonnie had. As Bonnie and my parents continued their conversation about me, I felt myself shrinking back into the insecure, self-conscious teenager I'd once been, the one desperate for their approval. It was as if, in their eyes, my success meant nothing because I hadn't followed their exact definition of happiness. Then, my parents turned their praise towards Bonnie. They gushed about how proud they were that she was getting married before me, calling it an accomplishment. It was clear that, to them, she was the superior child, successful in the ways that mattered. Meanwhile, I was just the older stepbrother who had missed his chance. What was supposed to be a joyful reunion quickly turned into a painful reminder of the past. Bonnie didn't just stop there. She leaned in with a smug grin. "So, when are you getting married? Do you even have a boyfriend?" she asked, clearly enjoying my discomfort. My parents eagerly jumped in, agreeing that it was high time I settled down before it was too late. They pointed out how Bonnie, despite being younger, was already engaged while I was still quote-unquote wasting my life away on work. I tried to push back. "Well, I like the way it is. My job is fulfilling and I'm happy," I told them. It was as if they didn't even hear me. My mother, especially, gave me a sharp look and scoffed. "What's the point of making all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to?" Sitting there, I felt the same old frustration creeping in, the sense of being unheard. My own family, who should have understood me best, didn't seem to grasp the idea that happiness could exist out of their narrow definition. I had come home seeking warmth and connection. Instead, I was met with judgment and ridicule. Bonnie, still smirking, delivered the final blow. "I expect you to have at least a +1 by the time my wedding rolls around," she said, as if my worth depended on proving something to her. Bonnie chuckled and continued, "I don't want people thinking my stepbrother is some old, miserable man all alone while I'm getting married." The comment stung, but I just shook my head and gave a small nod. That's when my parents chimed in, their tone casual but cutting. "Bonnie's wedding is almost a year away. Even if you don't find a partner, you should at least try to lose some weight and look more presentable for the wedding." They went on to suggest that if I lost weight, it would be easier for me to attract someone. Bonnie eagerly agreed. "Yeah, I'd like you to drop a few pounds at least," she added nonchalantly, as if she were doing me some kind of favor. I sat there, stunned and humiliated, feeling an old pain creeping back, the kind I hadn't felt in years. How could my own family speak about me like this? Did I really deserve to be belittled just because of my weight? Was I not allowed to have feelings? I was just as human as they were. I had a fulfilling life, a successful career, and I even dated men who liked me exactly as I was. Yet, my parents and Bonnie made it sound as if my size was a roadblock to love and happiness, as if no one would ever see me as desirable unless I changed. I wanted to stand up for myself, to tell them how cruel their words were, but I felt frozen, unable to respond. Their comments transported me back to high school, back to the years when my weight made me a target. I just hated how effortlessly my family could reduce me to nothing more than a number on a scale, without a second thought about how their words might hurt. I swallowed my pain, forced a smile, and let the conversation drift to something else. When I returned home from that trip, I threw myself into losing weight with a drive I never knew I had. What started as an attempt to prove something to my family soon became something deeply personal. I joined a gym, committed to a strict diet, and even hired a personal trainer. She had gone through her own transformation, so she knew exactly how to guide me. She tailored a plan specifically for me, pushing me forward while reminding me to be patient and be kind to myself. And this time, something clicked. The weight started coming off steadily, and as the pounds dropped, I felt lighter, not just physically, but mentally. For the first time in my life, I saw a different version of myself. My confidence skyrocketed. I had always assumed that losing weight wouldn't change how people treated me, but it did. Strangers were friendlier. Friends and coworkers started seeing me in a new light, treating me with a level of respect I'd never experienced before. I won't deny it. This feels like validation, something I had never received from my family. It was as if I had suddenly become visible in a way I never was before. With my new body came a new sense of style. I revamped my entire wardrobe, finally wearing clothes I had always admired but never dared to try. I even changed my hair, going for a bold and trendy look that I would have been way too afraid of to attempt before. Maybe it seems superficial, but I've never felt this good to be in my own body. Now, when I look in the mirror, I barely recognize the person staring back at me. It felt like meeting a version of myself I never knew existed. I wasn't just proud of the weight I'd lost, I was proud of the confidence and self-assurance I had gained. Now, with Bonnie's wedding just 2 weeks away, my family invited me to fly down and enjoy them for lunch next week to finalize the wedding plans. But I didn't want to go. I didn't want to put myself in a position where they could belittle me again, where they could make me feel small, especially now when I finally feel good about myself for the first time in years. I didn't want to attend Bonnie's wedding after the way she and my parents had treated me. But if I refused, I knew exactly what would happen. They'd be furious. They'd bombard me with lectures about how family is family, how it didn't matter if I was hurt. I had to be there for Bonnie's big day. So what happens if I refuse to go to my stepsister's wedding? Update 1. Wow, I'm completely overwhelmed by all of your responses. Some of your suggestions are hilarious. I can't believe how many of you are encouraging me to show up and mess with Bonnie now that I've lost all of this weight. Growing up as the fat kid really took a toll on my self-esteem, especially in terms of how I viewed myself. I spent years battling self-doubt, convinced I wasn't good enough or that I didn't measure up. But reading all of your comments has been a game changer. It's like you've seen myself in a completely new light. For the first time, I actually felt confident. And you know what? I'm seriously considering showing up to this lunch just to see their reactions. My family hasn't seen me in ages, and since I don't use social media, they have no idea how much weight I've lost. This could be very interesting. Update 2. Okay, get ready for this update, because things are about to get very entertaining. I decided to fly down and attend the family lunch. I figured that since they were the ones who pushed me to lose weight in the first place, they'd be proud when they saw me. Surely they'd be happy about my transformation, right? Well, that's what I thought. When I walked into my parents' house, their jaws literally dropped. They stared at me, completely stunned, as if they couldn't believe I was the same person. And after a few seconds of awkward silence, they started stammering me, questioning if it was really me. I gave them a big hug, thrilled with their reaction. For a moment, it felt good. They showered me with compliments, telling me how amazing I looked, how they couldn't believe the change. But then Bonnie arrived. At first, she didn't even notice me. She walked in completely ignoring me like she had always, as if I were some kind of invisible person. But when I stood up to greet her, she did a double take, her eyes going wide with shock. There was this weird, almost forced laugh before she reached out and poked my stomach, her fingers pressing in as if she needed proof that I'd actually lost all that weight. My parents laughed at her reaction, saying that they had just been as surprised as she was. And that's when things started to shift. As we settled into lunch, the conversation quickly shifted to my transformation. Bonnie and my parents fired off question after questioning, astonished at how different I looked. Their voices carried a mix of shock and fascination, as if they had never considered the possibility that I could look any other way. Bonnie, in particular, kept shaking her head in disbelief. "I never thought you'd change this much after losing weight," she muttered, her tone laced with something I couldn't quite place. Then she delivered the real kicker. "When I first told you to lose weight, I never expected you to actually look this pretty. I mean, I didn't even know you had that jawline or those ankles under all that fat." I froze for a moment, keeping my expression neutral while my stomach churned with irritation. I took a deep breath, gave her a polite smile, and responded, "Bonnie, I've always been pretty. Losing weight just made my features more noticeable." But she wasn't satisfied with that. Instead, she narrowed her eyes and leaned in as if studying me. "Are you sure you didn't have any work done?" she asked, her voice coated in suspicion. "Because there's no way you got this good looking just by losing weight." I felt my blood start to boil. The audacity, acting like I had to undergo surgery just to be considered attractive in her eyes. I locked eyes with her and replied evenly, "Wow, Bonnie, it's actually impressive how little you think of me. No surgery, just hard work and a lot of self-love. Something you might want to try one time." Bonnie's smirk faltered, her face shifting from surprise to irritation. Before she could snap back, my parents jumped in, trying to smooth things over in her own way. "Oh, don't be upset," my mother said with a casual wave of her hand. "We're just so surprised. Honestly, you look even more beautiful now than Bonnie does, and she's the one getting married." Bonnie's face turned red. I glanced at her from the corner of my eye, watching as she gritted her teeth and stared at her plate. My parents had spent years worshiping her, and now, for the first time, she wasn't their golden child. Just when I thought the awkwardness had peaked, my mother kept going. "You know," she mused, tapping her chin, "I was thinking maybe you should go back to your original hair color. This blonde makes you stand out way too much. You should go back to brown. It might suit you better." My father quickly nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Bonnie has always been the blonde daughter in the family, and you were the brunette. It just makes sense for you to go back to your natural look." Their words hit me like a slap. So this was it. They had pushed me to change, to lose weight, to fix myself for Bonnie's wedding. But now that I had become someone confident, attractive, and undeniably comfortable in my skin, they couldn't handle it. It wasn't just Bonnie who felt threatened, it was them too. My success was just too much for them, and instead of celebrating how far I had come, they were trying to pull me back, trying to reshape me into the version of myself that made them more comfortable. I sat there, ripping my fork, my appetite vanishing as realization settled in. No matter what I did, I would never be enough for them, because the moment I started feeling more than enough for myself, it became a problem. And fed up with their attempts to undermine me, I finally snapped. "What's your issue? Why can't I be blonde too? Does your stepsister own the color or something?" I paused, irritation creeping into my voice. "No, she doesn't. I can be blonde, brunette, or whatever I want. It's my choice. Why does this even matter so much to you?" I couldn't wrap my head around why they were so fixated on forcing me back into my old appearance, as if I was only allowed to exist as the version of myself they were comfortable with. My mother scoffed and accused me of deliberately trying to steal attention from Bonnie's wedding by changing my look. Bonnie, of course, jumped jumped in, her voice dripping with exasperation. With all the weight you've lost, you're already going to stand out. Do you really need to take my hair color too? And as expected, my father backed them up. You're just being difficult for no reason, he chimed in. As Bonnie's stepbrother, you should be more considerate. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't just about trying to take anything from Bonnie. It was about finally feeling good in my own skin. Instead of being happy for me, they were worried about how my happiness would make her uncomfortable. I exhaled sharply, my patience officially gone. You know what? I'm done with it. The words came out cold, cutting through the air. The three of you are so stuck in your own negativity that you can't even accept that I've changed. The truth is, I've always been amazing. You just never bothered to see it. And now, even after I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it will never be enough. I let my words settle, watching them stare at me, silent for once. It didn't matter anymore. I was done holding back. Since you all love giving me unsolicited advice, let me return the favor. I turned to my mother, my voice sharp. Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes. And your lips, they droop when you laugh. Oh, and don't get me started on your crooked teeth. Honestly, they're just gross to look at. I barely gave her time to react before shifting my gaze to my father. And you, Dad, why are you even talking about my hair? You're bald. You don't even get to have opinions about someone's hair color when you can't even keep hair on your own head. His face hardened, but I wasn't done. Finally, I turned to Bonnie, who was still smirking until she wasn't. And you, don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I was always the better looking one. And now, after all this weight loss, you actually look fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours. Bonnie's face turned red, her smirk vanishing as she looked onto the verge of tears. I lifted my glass, downed my drink in one smooth motion, and walked out with a smirk of my own, leaving them completely stunned. I had said everything I needed to. I couldn't believe those words had to come out of my mouth. But the best part, I didn't regret a single one of them. After years of being ridiculed and put down, they deserved a taste of their own cruelty. I flew home the same day, skipping Bonnie's wedding entirely. And since then, my phone has been bombarded with voicemails and texts from my parents and Bonnie, all calling me disrespectful and foul-mouthed for what I said, for simply leaving. My mom even insists that I must fly back and attend Bonnie's wedding because it would look bad to her in-laws if I didn't. Update 3. Instead of going back to the wedding, I took your advice and treated myself to a 5-star resort for the weekend. And honestly, it was the best decision I've made in a long time. No drama, no toxicity, just me relaxing in luxury. I spent the weekend at the spa, binge watching my favorite shows and exploring new places in the city I've been dying to visit. I've also blocked my entire family. I'm sick of their constant bullying and manipulation. Cutting them off has been liberating. Right now, my only focus is me. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more Reddit family karma happening around you. Thank you.